We had some good news this summer. A couple of grants which I was not leading but was a co-investigator on got funded, both from the BBSRC, one of which was very big, 3 years, 2 postdocs. We've been told on both grants that we shan't hear till basically this month how much of the grant has been funded and when we can spend it, and that is undoubtedly down to things such as the comprehensive spending review and, as of yesterday, the 1/3 cut in the science budget that has been announced, which is going to hit us very, very hard indeed. I assume that our grants are safe and in the bag because we were awarded them in the summer. But the experience from America certainly is that sometimes things are taken back, sometimes that you don't get as much as you think it is, or you're not allowed to spend it for a year or so, which has consequences because you're trying to keep on trained staff, which you have already. And if there's, that people don't wait around for a year, twiddling their thumbs on no money. They go and find other jobs. And with science, it's international and you could lose them out of the UK as well. It's quite grim actually at the moment because we don't know where the cuts are going to fall. Is it going to fall on the frontline responsive mode grants, which is what we've got, which is when you 4 times a year you put in a good idea and it gets funded or not, or the special initiatives, or is it going to fall on, say, the institutes, the big equipment, like the big synchrotron that's just been built, which I also use, and the neutron source again, which has just been built. They would be easy targets because you could mothball them for several years because the money's already been spent to build them. But that means that you've got to go somewhere else in the world to do those type of studies. So we don't know. We just do not know where the axe is going to fall. They're saying now that we can only fund things that are either industry relevant or scientifically excellent. Well, that's actually what happens already. If I put a grant in and it has no industrial relevance and it is not scientifically excellent, full stop, irrelevant whether it's industrially relevant or theoretically outstanding, it will not get funded. It's okay for a person like me who has a permanent job, who is in a university that is not in debt, who has grants already, and maybe if these existing grants will take us through to about 2014, so when the bad times are seen out, it's okay for people like me. What it's not good for is people like the postdoctoral researchers who rely on this funding for their livelihood, who have not got permanent jobs. What these people will do, I don't know. They'll go into industry, they will leave the country, or they'll leave science.
What do you say to a taxpayer who says, I sympathise with the argument you're making, but I'd much rather see a postdoc struggling to find a job than not have my hospital funded properly?
It's a difficult one, and the problem with science is it's a long-term investment. It's not a sprint, it's a very long marathon. All the scientific developments that were made in the 80s and 90s are probably coming towards commercial fruition now. So things like the outputs of engineering antibodies, for instance, which were advances which were made in the 80s and 90s, are now turning into multi-million-pound companies in biopharmaceuticals. It's a long-term thing, and it's a case of, well, it's something you do anyway to guarantee your future. And it is quite a delicate thing because if you cut off the supply now, okay, so nothing quite gets done for a bit, right? But you then have to start it up again at some point, right? Which means bringing people back in who may have been abroad. So you've got to try and entice them back, have the reverse brain drain. And that can be more expensive further down the line. The other thing is that science is an awfully efficient and cheap way of doing this as academic science. For every pound you invest, I think the Royal Society found out it got about £1.30 back. Okay, so that's on most investments. 30% is a long term, pretty good. If you got 10% a year on something, you'd be pretty damn happy.